our December 15th, 2 o'clock town board meeting. Mr. Clerk, roll call.
Supervisor Wareheim,
Here.
Councilman McCarthy,
Here.
Councilwoman Noack,
Here.
Councilwoman Inzarella,
Here.
Councilman Lohman.
Yeah.
Okay, we are going to start today's board meeting with a presentation on the draft, town's draft comprehensive plan. Our folks from H2M Engineering and Architects will be joining us, as well as our Planning and Environment Waterways Department. Before we start, Nicole, would you please read the note that we have?
Yes, Supervisor. So today the town board is hearing the presentation of the draft comprehensive master plan. This is literally the very first time we're all seeing this, but in the interest of transparency, we wanted the public to hear it first in the same fashion. This is not a public hearing. Today, we are simply here to listen. Please refrain from asking any questions regarding the comprehensive plan until the community workshops or during the public comment period. Our planning department will make those dates and live stream information available as soon as they have been scheduled. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, you could begin your presentation. Jeff is muted.
Jeff, are you ready?
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if I was going to be pulling up the PowerPoint or so now I'm doing that. I'm just pulling up the PowerPoint. Okay. Can everybody see the full version of that, or are you getting the kind of the screen, half screen?
I see tulips.
What do you see in front of you right now?
I see everything.
So it's a full screen?
No,
Yes.
it's two slides. It's a side by side.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's showing the first slide and it says next slide.
Yeah.
But I also see and the next slide, right, Peter? Right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm just trying to, I have two monitors here, so I'm just trying to set it up.
That looks good. You got the full
This
slide
looks,
screen.
yeah, looks like what you're probably looking for.
Okay, you have the full screen?
Yep.
With
We
all
do.
the tabs on the left, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to get you the full screen so you don't have the tabs on the left, but for some reason or another, it's just showing you
If
on
you
my
go up
monitor.
top, along the top, auto save, you see the one thing with the green arrow. I think if you click on that, that should normally bring you to full screen.
Or Control L.
I'm trying both. I love starting presentations like this, by the way. It's great. Yeah, it's not letting me do it. Oh yeah. No, I clicked on that, but what it is that I have two monitors, so it's showing on my other monitor as a full size.
Can you bring that screen over?
Trying.
Make it your primary. Or just drag it.
It's never easy, is it? Let me just try again, guys. I apologize. Now?
Yes.
Full screen. There
Hey!
you go.
All right. Okay. Well, sorry for the delay. Now that we've got it all worked out. So I'm going to be looking a little bit to the right. So we have two people on the call today from H2M, Paul Cancia and Constance Vavilis, who have worked on this project with us. Constance, just by way of introduction, is our secret expert who will be intimately involved in the next step of the master plan process. So I also wanted to start off by saying, you know, the development of this plan could not have been done alone. You know, your planning staff in the town of Smithtown is, and you know, you're going to think I'm just saying this, but really is one of the best group of planners I've worked with in my 26 years plus. It's been an enjoyable project. Whenever we needed any information, they were there for us. And I also want to thank all the residents who have come out during the public outreach portion of this master plan process. So now that I have all the thank yous out of the way, I'll just begin the presentation. So I think we all know what a comprehensive plan is. I should mention that the last comprehensive plan was not done in 50 years. So this is a pretty big undertaking for the planning department and for our H2M team. H2M team being members of Tim Haas, who do the parking analysis and study, and AKRF, who do the traffic and transportation aspect. So as part of this master plan presentation, we looked at the land use, we looked at the circulation, community facilities, sustainability element, capital improvement, and the 6 community plans. So the way the master plan is set up is that we have an overall land use, we have all elements discussed, but we also broke them down into community plans. That way, making it easier for the residents of these areas, these hamlets, to kind of access their particular recommendations or discussions about zone changes or just overall changes that may or may not happen in the community. You know, one of the things that we like to do as part of any master plan, besides having them pretty graphically intensive, is also providing an implementation recommendation screen where who's responsible for it, is it a short-term, mid-term, long-term kind of project, and what those recommendations are. That way, the board, the planning board, can use this yearly to kind of go through and set forth their policy objectives for the year. So it's a report that we want people to use. We just don't want it to be put on a shelf. So in general, the town law 272-A, which is the powers and duties granted by the legislature for a town to undertake its own comprehensive master plan and regulate land use for the purpose of protecting health, safety, and the general welfare of its citizens. And also the town code 272A 8. When the comprehensive plan is accompanied by a generic environmental impact statement pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, no further compliance with such law is required. So we're going through the effort of completing, the master plan and also the secret component here. So it's all kind of encompassed in one. So you're going to have one document that, as applications come in, for the most part, can kind of be reflected in the master plan recommendation. We maintain a public website for the master plan process, a clearinghouse for information for everybody. And you'll see the master plan really reflects throughout the document the concerns of the community. So when we make a recommendation or we talk about a land use section, we're talking about, what percentage of the people wanted to see, additional building typologies, which were more in support of preserving open space. So you'll see kind of examples throughout the project. And I think it's important to reflect that in the document because, the public came out, they met with us and, spent a great deal of time, and we want to make sure that their concerns are heard and that they're reflected in the document itself. People, residents live in the town and its hamlets because they love its neighborhoods and because they have access to local and regional jobs. It's very interesting that every single hamlet has kind of its own identity, and we could see that from day one. But as the project progressed, we more and more saw the distinct characteristics and the enthusiasm that the residents and business owners and property owners had for their individual area where they live or work. Some of the guiding principles. So we base these guiding principles on input from the public, but also from just developing the overall master plan and our recommendations. And I'm not going to read through all of them. I'll kind of scan them. We realized that citizens are active participants in the process. We strive to preserve the attributes of our unique hometown character and community identities. We value open space and parks as an integral part of our community's fabric. We support vibrant concentrations of retail, office, service, residential, and public space in Smithtown's downtown locations. Maintain a strong and diverse economy and provide a business climate that retains and attracts locally owned companies. We'll promote high quality development that reflects aesthetics, and the architectural and land use design is fundamental to great places. Advance sustainability practices that promote social equity, environmental health, and economic prosperity. One of the big key factors since day one was that we will preserve our single family neighborhoods while providing alternate housing choices in appropriate areas. The master plan is, for all intents and purposes, leaves the residential properties or zones alone. They're built out communities. So a lot of the concentration you'll see is on the kind of the commercial, the mixed use area. Encourage a variety of employment opportunities and promote a multimodal transportation network, which is roadways, bikeways, walkways, and public transportation. Just a little image of one of our outreach meetings. So we engaged the public. We also had committee meetings from the beginning, kind of setting the framework and time frame for how the project is going to move forward, where our public meetings were going to be, and kind of coordinating elements and giving the committee updates as we prepared the plan. Things change over time, so it was important to kind of meet with the committee to see if there were new projects or new policy changes that needed to be incorporated into the plan. We developed the comprehensive plan website, which is part of the publicinput.com. It allowed us to outreach for questionnaires. It allowed us to kind of put together a comprehensive list of participants in the process that wanted to be contacted throughout the process. As I mentioned, we ran a 9-month public input survey. We had a great turnout for that, which is, as I mentioned, is incorporated throughout the plan. Then we had our 6 public community workshops, March through April. And now we're here tonight going through the draft with the draft of the comprehensive plan and the secret. And then ultimately in the spring, the town board will look to approve the master plan and the secret documents in spring 2021. Community engagement and public participation. When asked to rate a specific list of issues affecting Smithtown, property taxes, no shock to anybody, were very important. The conditions of parks and recreation were 66% said it was very important for people. Access to parks and recreation and environmental quality were just as important. Traffic and pedestrian and bicycle safety. In all the communities that I've worked in over the years, Smithtown really does have one of the most comprehensive, park networks in terms of, local parks and also county parks. And the connectivity between them, it's pretty significant. At the back of the document that you'll see, the draft document, we have a summary of all the feedback from the public. It's there for you to reference, is also for the public to reference as well. One of the most important things for us in using public input is to be able to see that we've tried to reach out to every kind of community within Smithtown. And this, as we had our public meetings, we asked people for, where they live, general locations. So this gives us an idea if we needed to reach out or to through Facebook ads or through social media to see if we can get additional input. So just a map showing where all the responses were and where they were concentrated. You know, when we come into a community, you know, that we don't live in, we like to, first question we ask is, you know, why do you live in Smithtown? Why do you like it here? Why did you move here? Why have you stayed here? The school system was important, the quality of life. They found a home that they liked, you know, close to family and friends, and there's a sense of community character. So land use issues. As I mentioned before, the master plan had not been updated in 50 years. And throughout those years, zoning ordinances have been amended kind of, you know, on an as needed basis. There's been, you know, zoning change requests. There's been variance requests. So we do look at those issues when preparing the plan. So there's an antiquated zoning ordinance. What we heard from the public is that they feel there's a lack of housing diversity. Some of the downtowns are struggling. Most downtowns, I should say, across the country are going through a change in how they incorporate retail and mixed use together. So, you know, we call it the kind of the damage from Amazon, but there are different uses that are coming into downtowns, more experiential retail uses as opposed to straight up normal retail. Strategic siting of new and infill development. So we're looking, you know, one of the first things we also do is look at vacant lands. Where are vacant lands available? Who owns them? Are they developable? What should be there? Should they be preserved as open space? And then it's important to look at the natural environment, the natural versus the built environment. And, you know, as you'll hear me mention throughout the presentation, is that community-specific issues are important. And you have a very active community, as I mentioned. Residential, just giving you some snapshots of some of how Smithtown is kind of composed. 51.16 of the acreage is single family homes. The residential districts are stable, desirable, and maintained. There's no need to make any substantial changes to the existing sections of the zoning code that regulate the single family homes. One of the changes that we're talking about is prohibiting nursing homes and assisted living facilities in single family districts. And to also, you know, propose a new multifamily zone where applicable. Now, multifamily zones are not proposed in this plan as being incorporated in and or relatively adjacent to single family properties. As I mentioned, we're trying to keep the single family areas alone. Future housing types, when asked the public, you know, what should the town encourage or discourage? Single family, strongly encouraged, senior housing, and townhome development. So as we go down that table, we look at apartment, mixed use and affordable housing is 40 to 39% are strongly encouraged. Accessory dwelling units, we start to see that a lot of people are not looking for additional accessory dwellings, duplexes, or more assisted living facilities. So 5.48% of the acreage is office and business. We are, there's no substantial changes to office districts or shopping center districts. You know, when looking at all these downtowns and looking at all the zones, you know, we need to concentrate retail and restaurants in downtowns and the neighborhood centers, as opposed to putting them on highway corridors like Route 25 and Route 347. And that's reflected in some of the changes that we've suggested in terms of the definitions in the plan. We're going to have changes to the proposed neighborhood business zone. And then kind of one of the biggest items that stood out to us was replacing the central business district with hamlet-specific downtown districts. You know, the downtown districts had uses such as animal husbandry uses and agriculture, and allowing single-family homes in there, and gas stations. So typically that's not what you see in there. And, you know, in fact, during the process, some of these ordinances were actually changed ahead of the master plan to reflect, you know, not having those uses in your typical downtown. Future office, strongly encouraged, restaurants, commercial recreation, high-end retail stores and offices. You as we all know, sewers are the primary issue with bringing in restaurants and different types of uses because of the capacity. So a lot of people during the public process said they would go to surrounding communities for dinners, or or looking for entertainment reasons. So one of the goals here is to change that. We want to keep people in Smithtown. I'm not saying they all go out to other areas, but it was a general sentiment from a lot of people. Strongly encourage businesses and homes or discount retail. It's only 37%. And then gas stations, which is only 14% really wanted them in downtown areas and commercial areas. So, as I mentioned, the current central business zone regulates traditional downtowns in Smithtown, Kings Park, St. James, and some locations on commercial corridors. So downtowns and commercial corridors should not be regulated by the same zoning district. They were going into this master plan. So downtowns, as we all know, we want them to be walkable. We want them to be pedestrian friendly. We want shopping. We want dining. We want the kind of community service and outdoor events that can be held in downtowns. Commercial corridors are more supported by automobile related convenience shopping and services. So the recommendations are transform the central business district zone into hamlet specific zones in downtown or core areas, which we'll see in the next slide. And existing central business zones outside of downtown and core locations should be rezoned by right sizing the zone to the existing location. We'll go through that. So community business, for example, we had mentioned that, so we're looking at Lake Avenue here. If you can see on my screen here, I'm just looking at Lake Ave. So before this, they were all downtown zones. So we're making the distinction with creating the neighborhood business zone up here, and then creating, which we'll talk about a little bit later, two different distinct Lake Avenue districts. So we're rezoning North Country Road from central business to neighborhood business. And I should say right off the top, whenever we talk about rezoning and potential for rezoning, any of the any uses that may become non-conforming would be still grandfathered into their use. They were allowed to be maintained. So I just that's always kind of a concern about a lot of property owners, that thing does get rezoned, that their use goes away, and they, a lot of misinformation about whether or not they're still able to be operable or maintained. So I want to make that clear. They'll be grandfathered in. So our downtown strategy: eliminate the central business zone and replace with the transit village zone for downtown Smithtown, the Lake Avenue district in downtown St. James, and then the Kings Park plan was done by another firm, but they are recommending the transition district, core district, and transit-oriented development district. And then Wisconsin core. Wisconsin didn't have a true kind of downtown core area. It did have the Armory and the park there, and we think a possibility of potential redevelopment or infill for the shopping center located right directly across the street. So we're really trying to create through this zoning, not like a typical downtown, but we're calling it the Wisconsin core. So when you think about downtowns, they're centers of places where people congregate. They go out to dinner, they meet people. They are developed as transit-oriented development. I spoke to the evolution of retail and how, the internet has kind of changed things for retail. So it's ever evolving. So, we looked at different uses to incorporate different uses permitted in these downtowns. And crucial to any kind of downtown, it's allowing for that mixed use and potential downtown office space. Office space is important because it supports the local businesses during the day as well as at night. If you go to a downtown that does not have a core kind of office component where people can walk or at least drive very close to, you talk to the business owners and you'll see that during the week, business is probably half of what it is on the weekend. So bringing these types of uses in will encourage them to use local businesses and support them. So we talked about the appearance and convenience ratings for the downtowns and the perception of what people thought of the downtowns. So downtown Smithtown, 34% thought it was average, 32 below, and 17 poor. Downtown Kings Park was 30% average, 28 below average, 16 poor, and downtown St. James was 32, 27, and 12 respectively. So you're seeing it's very, very similar across all downtowns. Maybe for different reasons. Downtown Smithtown, it may be, it's the roadway width. It's the presence of what people may perceive downtown Smithtown, but actually not being downtown Smithtown, is the larger kind of strip centers there, the big shopping center that are adjacent to the downtown. Downtown St. James, it's probably one of the factors is lack of parking. The lack of sewers contributes to the lack of a diversified kind of uses out there. So this is what the public was saying about the downtown areas. So our downtown recommendations: appropriate mixed-use development, the enhancement of existing, as well as the creation of limited new commercial space, a parking plan that takes into consideration structured parking integrated into any future development. Now, that's kind of a broad recommendation, but it's more specific to downtown Smithtown. We don't envision any kind of structured parking on Lake Avenue, and we don't envision any kind of structured parking, at least at this point, for municipal owned. Any kind of structured parking would more or less be accompanied with any proposed development in the future that should be integrated into it. High-tech office space to support downtown viability, creation of public spaces for residents and visitors, embracement of arts and culture as a draw to the community, the creation and implementation of a streetscape improvement plan. So we know that Lake Avenue has gone through that process right now. Streetscapes, along with rezoning and having a plan, will make a big difference. Architectural design guidelines and standards for future development, so we have a cohesiveness along the street. Encourage construction of apartments in downtowns. We talked about the need or the want from the residents for diversification of types of units, from single family to townhomes to multifamily buildings with smaller, apartments that are walkable within the community, and provide people a transition from single family homes to living in a downtown. And also, the population in Smithtown, it's probably a majority of it is about 45 and older. And throughout the community process, it was like, well, how do we get our kids to move back here? How do we get our kids to stay here? So one of the ways is to construct apartments in the downtown. And then pedestrian safety and amenities always goes along with kind of any downtown recommendations or improvements. Specifically, downtown St. James, rehabilitate and redevelop, encourage transit-oriented development, residential, activate the pedestrian realm, placemaking and Main Street historic character, and encourage shared parking. Now, I know the planning department has met with a lot of property owners out there and have worked to kind of come up with cross-access agreements for, encourage shared parking behind structures, as opposed to having them, everybody having their own parking lot. It allows for additional parking as opposed to just having individual lots. And I think there has been some success in that process. And, based on the roadway width there, we think we fully support that suggestion and the progress that the planning department has made in working with the property owners there. So with Lake Avenue, we think there's two distinct areas. We do have the rail stop, so we're calling it the TOD sub-districts. This is an area where we envision a little bit higher density in and around the train. So it's the, not the wagons, it's the food store, and it's also the parcel that is a landscaping parcel. So if you're looking on my screen, we're talking about these two areas here and the transit parking lot. So there we're allowing or suggesting that we can go a little bit higher. We can go a little bit higher along the rail line. The rest of it, kind of has a softer feeling to it. We want to maintain that 2.5 stories. There's a lot of 1 stories out there. So if we can promote people to go to 2.5 stories, 35 feet in the other areas, we think there's opportunities there. I had mentioned, integrating, parks and open space. It was, I think it was made apparent to us a couple of weeks ago that there was a structure torn down that's going to be parking, kind of a little park area. So these are the kind of things that are integral to any kind of downtown. It's a balance between a lot of different uses. And then downtown Smithtown, the largest of the downtown areas. We're suggesting to rezone the Presbyterian Church as residential to discourage redevelopment. East side of Landing as a professional business. There are businesses up there, so we're looking just to enhance the kind of zone, that district that can support the downtown. Rezone Lawrence Ave from office business to professional business, and rezone as transit village zone with 3 sub-districts. Rezone west of the railroad as neighborhood business. Right zone the shopping center as a shopping center business. You'll see it throughout this presentation is that a lot of it is kind of right zoning, existing zoning that's out there. There are a lot of shopping centers that were never zoned shopping centers. They were zoned neighborhood business. So we're trying to consolidate everything and make them fit into kind of their categories. And then also possible TDR program with the New York Avenue site in the school, between New York Avenue and the Breslin site. There are, soccer fields on the New York Avenue site, and there's, we've talked about what type of development should go there, and whether it should all be developed or not be developed. But there's a possibility if it is developed fully, that we can go through a TDR program and maybe move the soccer fields and or park facilities to the Breslin property. So the core area in the downtown is obviously in and around Main Street, and the master plan has a couple of concepts in here to, for realignment of streets to kind of activate some of the inner areas of downtown. Route 25 is a busy road. There's been some changes to the turning areas and the roadway widths over the years. We thought, one of the good suggestions was to be maybe to try to integrate some internal kind of retail and commercial that goes along with some mixed use buildings. So here we're recommending in the transit village, let me see here, this business district, excuse me. So we have here on the left is the existing schedule. And then on the right, we have the 3 distinct transit village zones, the transit village TOD, which is allowable for 3 stories. Then we have the transit village core. So the TVC is the core area where we have allowable 40 feet. And then we have the transit village transition. So transition, what it sounds like, it's making the transition to other zones where we're allowing to go back to 2.5 stories. So it's not a great increase, along Main Street area, but we are providing for some opportunities in and around the rail line because we think it's an area that you can go a little bit higher and not have any kind of negative effect to that. Oh, and excuse me, I forgot to mention these properties up here, which is the parking lot, municipal parking lot, or the train station parking lot. Downtown Kings Park was broken up into the downtown core and downtown transitional. So this is all part of a downtown study that was done, I think, by VAB, and they had gone through or are going through the secret process with this now. So it's, when you look at this and you compare it to Smithtown, it's very similar in terms of heights. It's similar in terms of the overall, properties, just on a smaller scale than downtown Smithtown. And then we have this concept core. So we're suggesting that we rezone portions from neighborhood business and shopping center and professional business to this concept core area that combines land uses policies of both the traditional downtown and a neighborhood business area. Zone remainder, we're going to suggesting that we rezone the remainder of the corridor neighborhood business, including portions that were once professional business areas. And we're looking to right zone some of the professional business and residential areas. So areas that were, in the past zoned as office and the residential, we're suggesting you go back to residential in these areas. And if I'm speaking too fast, let me know. 65 slides to go through, so just trying to go through them. So here we just talk about, so we changed some of the gross floor areas. We kind of combined them. So we're still maintaining the same height. We're still maintaining the same stories, but we've made some changes to the setback. We've made some changes to the like I said, the front and rear yards. We're trying to incorporate not a traditional downtown feel, but kind of a mix. And if we look at where, my mouse is up on the screen, this is the armory over here in the park system, and the park over here as well. We see that this as an area that has the potential to be kind of a core area. Initially we talked about, for downtown Wisconsin, creating a true traditional downtown. And we got a little pushback from the public about really not having or really not wanting it there. So we went away from that and tried to come up with kind of a hybrid situation here. So changes to the neighborhood business. We're modifying the current neighborhood business zone to better reflect its stated intent. So we're expanding neighborhood business where appropriate to reflect existing conditions. We're simplifying the regulated land uses in the tables. So when we do a master plan, one of the first things we do is memorize the zoning and get into the zoning and see what needs to be changed or tweaked. So there was a lot of use tables that were kind of cumbersome. So we made the recommendation throughout the plan to kind of consolidate. For example, under existing land use character, we had, permitted uses were appliance, office machine or furniture repair, banks, shipping centers, and a whole list of things. So we're suggesting that we could consolidate those into retail services or personal services. So you'll see it's just a consolidation of a lot of the zoning content and intent down there. It makes it a little bit clearer, I think. And then we have the commercial corridor zone. So we're rezoning portions of Smithtown bypass by Terry Road to Southern Boulevard as a commercial corridor zone. The intent is geared towards an auto-dominated corridor. These uses out here, we're kind of calling them a hybrid between the WSI zones and the neighborhood business. They permit contractor showrooms, filling stations, hotels, personal services, retails, and restaurants. And those are really the uses that are out there now. We do not want to permit residential uses or retail shops, repair garages, or commercial public recreation or outdoor storage. You'll see, throughout the master plan that we're really trying to promote a lot of the kind of sit-down restaurants more in your downtown areas, as opposed to some of the highway commercial core areas. But so we looked at some of the existing zoning and we're recommending that we reclaim some of these areas as residential zoning. And you also see that throughout the report is that we are proposing a park zone. I'm bringing it up because there's a large park zone recommended there. So not many changes here. We just went into kind of consolidate the commercial core area, which is a blend. We reduced the lot area. We reduced the front yard setback and maintain the rear, kind of reduce the side yard setback as well. So whenever we look at making zone changes, we've gone through the exercise using mapping and GIS to kind of see how many properties that we may affect when rezoning properties. So we don't make these kind of recommendations kind of, pulling them out of the air. We spent probably 30, 40 hours sitting down with the planning department, kind of going through lot by lot, what would be affected by this. So, it's not an educated guess. We've gone into great detail to see how properties would be affected. And, based on our recommendations, we're comfortable with these recommendations. And then Route 111. Route 111 was kind of another area that we initially contemplated as a downtown core area. Hauppauge didn't have a kind of a commercial core downtown. We backed off that as well. We see this as an opportunity, to right-size create the proposed shopping center business there, to rezone properties as neighborhood businesses because they're more in line with what that is. And then also we looked at these very, very deep lots right off of Route 111. It's kind of a mix of a decent amount of vacant properties, and I know that kind of changes month to month, but during the process, there's probably at least 3 or 4 vacant parcels there. We didn't know why, maybe because of the location. So we're recommending, the town board may consider multifamily use there along the eastern side of Route 111 because they back up to residential properties to begin with. And then Crooked Hill Road, we're going to right zone to conform with existing conditions. So we're expanding the shopping center business zone and rezoning neighborhood business, excuse me, to uses that kind of meet that criteria. And then rezoning 2 parcels as office business based on current existing uses there. Comac Corners, we're going to right zone it to conform with the existing conditions. It was never really called a shopping center business, so we're designated as shopping center. And then we're also right zoning the other area. So proposed neighborhood business to conform with the uses that are within the neighborhood business zones. And then we're also recommending the expansion of the shopping center business zone over here on the left-hand side. The existing shopping center, I forget what it was zoned. I don't know if it was RMGA, but it's a shopping center, so it made sense to kind of rezone that for shopping center business. Industrial, I was, at the beginning of the process, I was very impressed to hear that the light industrial park was the 2nd largest in the country. Did not know that. So it's pretty impressive, and it's a driving factor for the community of Smithtown. It's only 5.2% of the acreage, but it is a large industrial park. So, with the Regional Planning Association report that came out, there's a number of recommendations in that report for changes. And I know there's been changes over the course of the past few years in terms of the overlay district and trying to incentivize some additional kind of development. Recently, there was I think the initial, I don't know if it was ever officially voted upon, but a mixed use zoning ordinance for the industrial park, allowing mixed use in specific areas and parcels that make sense. And then we made changes to the wholesale and WSI zone, kind of separated them into 2 different zones. These are the recommendations that we pulled and incorporated into the master plan. So expanding the list of use groups, adopt a mixed use overlay zone, allow microbreweries, bars, theaters, daycare, and laundromats, adopt an FAR to remain at 0.42, but offer 0.5 potentially as a bonus in exchange for pre-identified improvements, reduce the minimum side yard requirements to allow building configurations compatible with a more pedestrian right-of-way, examine reducing parking ratios for select uses. So the RPA report had specific recommendations in there that we're kind of moving forward on. So this is just a sketch that was part of the RPA report, I think it was. Now we have the changes to the WSI zones. So there was two different areas. So the West Jericho Turnpike area and the Middle Country Road. Middle Country Road is more kind of, well, let me start out here. The WSI zone along West Jericho, we're recommending to rename actually as WSI 1 and prohibit motor vehicle sales. The Middle Country Road will be WSI 2 and allowing for vehicle showrooms. We're prohibiting or suggesting that we prohibit restaurants, but permit food retail in both those zones. Now, the Middle Country Road, allows outdoor storage, and there's a number of auto-related or motor vehicle sales that are out there now, and that was kind of the driving force behind, one of the main differences between the areas. I mentioned here we're going to prohibit restaurants but permit food retail. We want restaurants to concentrate in the downtown areas and the core areas. Doesn't mean we were not encouraging food retail. So there was probably about four or five, if I remember correctly, definitions of what a restaurant was, or retail, or counter service kind of retail. So we consolidated them into several different or two different categories. So a restaurant is an eating establishment or prepared and served for patrons, seated at tables. And food retail is generally what you consider more of a fast food type drive-through. There are seats, but are generally not, food's not generally taken out to the consumers, but at a counter instead. Gyrodyne, one of the bigger projects, it's 75 acre. We're all very aware of it. It's undergoing review for subdivision. Includes a senior care facility, office space, hotel, open space, and a sewage plant. So recommendation is that we maintain a 200-foot buffer for parkland along the western side of the property as well. Old Northport Road. We were looking to right zone or the heavy industrial properties. Recent proposed projects may change future land uses in this area, for instance, the solar farm or the OWPF siting. So, it's kind of like the wild, wild west out there a little bit in the heavy industrial area. But you are seeing kind of a non-intrusive use such as the solar farm being used out there. So we need to keep an eye on what's going out there. So we'll continue to monitor the heavy industrial in the area around Northport Road for potential change in the future. And then we also are looking to permit transfer stations, excluding municipal solid waste transfer stations, as a town board special exemption in the heavy industry zone. So future land uses, when asked, should the town encourage or discourage the following types of potential development? Everybody wanted agriculture, 70%. And then people wanted institutional uses as well. So one of the main recommendations is we thought the best way to kind of separate all these park uses by creating a new park zone in the zoning map. And then we talked about TDR before when we're looking at Smithtown, downtown Smithtown, the potential for creating an ascending and receiving district for these two areas if the Newark Avenue property is to be redeveloped in the future. So the future land use plan that's in the master plan, there was one overall map that you see on the screen, which when you're looking at an 8.5 by 11 report, probably a little bit hard to see in a lot of cases, but our neighborhood plans have small blown up versions on which you'll be able to read a lot better. So this table here is just to show you the consolidation of our uses and to show you what we've added. For instance, we've added the multifamily zone for residential. We've, we didn't consolidate the central business district. In fact, we made it, very distinct to each hamlet's core downtown area. We updated the WSI 1 and 2, and then we created the park zone. So key land use recommendations: amend the zoning regulations for ease of use and for a change in permitted uses as appropriate. Definitely maintain the existing single family neighborhoods. Consider establishing a TDR program. Provide for mixed use structures where appropriate, and by appropriate, we generally mean in your downtown core areas. Encourage the diversification of housing stock in appropriate locations, and then encourage DOD development near train stations as well. Transportation issues. 58% thought it was very important. It was the fourth most important issue facing Smithtown. Bicycle and pedestrian safety is important, ranked the fifth most important. So when asked how Smithtown should improve mobility, improve biking and walking conditions, add more parks, or more parking in the downtown. You go to any downtown, that's the first thing people are going to say is we need more parking in the downtown. A lot of cases, it's just not knowing where the parking is located for wayfinding signage needed. In many cases, there may not be enough parking. Streetscape amenities. Streetscape improvement plans work when they're in line with proposed zoning changes. They want to make it easier to drive around, improve technology, better traffic and signals, and the timing of the actual signals. In a lot of cases, that's through the county. So transportation, new issues and trends. There's always going to be the trend of the issue of traffic congestion and road safety for all users. Bike and pedestrian mobility, walkable commercial areas, better train and bus schedules. Key transportation recommendations. A lot of them, these are semi-broad, but they get into a little more detail in the plan, is maintain a safe and transportation network, improve bus service, remedy congested intersections, enhance pedestrian accessibility, promote active lifestyles, and better Long Island Railroad service. A lot of people go to, and I forget the other rail service, but they kind of bypass using Smithtown in a lot of cases and go to surrounding communities to park and use the trains. And I think a lot of it has to do with also the timing of the schedule of the railroad. So the community facilities element is, and what we're talking about there in the document is parks, recreation, and open space, historic and cultural resources, and community facilities and services. So this is a pretty big element. It kind of encompasses a lot of different aspects. As I mentioned at the beginning, open space and access to it was very important to everybody. People use the parks constantly. And it was very important for them to be able to access these parks, on the weekends or whenever they want. So definitely a priority. We did, as part of a parks metrics, we use what's called a National Recreation and Park Association standard. We look at the population, we look at the density, we look at the amount of parkland that's available. And then we break it down into whether it's town-owned or whether it is owned by the county or the state. And according to this, there is a deficit of town-owned parkland based on the population, and there's actually a surplus of county and state-owned parks. So it doesn't mean that you have to go out and start buying up property for town parks. If you see the opportunity to integrate them into any kind of plan, any kind of downtown plan, or maybe linking existing parks together if there's an opportunity. In the past, there's been discussion of the town purchasing properties to adjacent county parks. So as I mentioned, the facilities per capita, these types of park facilities, the amenities they provide have been and remain very important to the town. We heard that there needs to be an exploration for opportunities for a community center or recreation center, and possibly integrating that into a senior center as well. Access to town parks, and ensure park maintenance and diversity of park amenities. We'll talk about that next. Access to town parks, special purpose parks, and town beaches. They serve the town-wide population. Neighborhood parks, when you're talking about neighborhood parks, they serve the population within a half mile, which is typically what people consider a walkable half mile. Community parks serve a population within 2 miles. So the conclusions are majority of the neighborhoods have adequate access to parks. There's really no need to fill in gaps where they exist. So we mapped all these parks and how they relate to the neighborhoods here to give you a snapshot of the relationship. You're not going to be able to read this on the screen, I'm sure, but it's quality of the facilities. So we asked why residents go to parks for the survey, and they, 19 use of beaches and boardwalks, walking and running, use of playgrounds and swings. The town should enhance existing park amenities by adding additional maintaining existing play elements like swing sets and jungle gyms. They're exposed to the elements 24 hours a day, so they need to be maintained. Attracting residents who use parks for walking, running, and enhancing this popular activity through building and improving trails and installing fitness zones along these walkable trails. And examining why users may not frequently use a facility, such as a lack of public comfort stations, for example, restrooms. So we went through this kind of an inventory of a snapshot of all the parks and all the amenities that are included in each park. So the metrics and maintenance and summary of that. Consider additional metrics and review all metrics on a regular basis. So the town's greatest needs based on the recreation survey responses. Water and boating access, additional soccer, lacrosse, and football fields. Every town always has a need for additional soccer or ball fields or hybrid fields. Expand and modernize playgrounds, modern playground amenities, more diversified amenities, for instance, walking loops, dog parks, or fitness zones. Activities for all seasons, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, ice skating. I mean, a lot of these uses may be permitted, or there may be areas to do it, but maybe it's just a matter of kind of reaching out to the public to let them know how to access that. Support facilities at existing parks, enhancement of parking and restrooms, and then non-vehicular connections between these parks and open spaces, for instance, sidewalks and bicycle facilities. And then facilities that support a range of ages and abilities, and potential for any indoor facilities that are related to the town's parks. And, you know, by indoor facilities, whether it's a swim pool, whether it's a pool, whether it's an indoor ice hockey, whether it's indoor lacrosse. So looking at the possibilities for kind of all season, all weather facilities. Future open space opportunities, undeveloped town parkland. Half Hollow Road Park in Comac, Donald Drive Park in Kings Park, Hillside Gramercy Gardens in Kings Park, 3rd Street Park in St. James, and Astor Avenue Park in St. James. Kings Park Village Green at Parks Department property, parkland swaps, and then look to Suffolk County acquisitions. So these are all opportunities for enhancement of the parks of the parks and open space. Historic preservation. Majority of historic properties that are listed here, as you can see on the map, are located up here, right outside of Brookhaven. So when asked the public, 79% they said they should protect historic structures and districts. That historic preservation is important. The town does have a historic society and historic advisory board. I think the historic advisory board is inactive, but you do not have a historic board or commission in town. Chapter 185 is the town's local historic preservation ordinance. Recommendations that needs better protection on sites outside historic districts, as confirmed in the recent LWRP. Excuse me. Historic preservation recommendations: expand protections of historic resources, update the town-wide historic resources survey, which has not been done in a number of years, encourage adaptive reuse of historic structures. The town I live in right now, somebody's actually lifting an historic structure and integrating it into a new multifamily building development. So there's all possibilities out there. You know, we hate to see historic structures taken down. You know, one of the biggest problems with historic preservation is just the lack of knowledge of what is out there. So it's important to educate the property owners on the benefits of historic designation. You know, there may be tax credits involved in that for helping to preserve or restore facades or buildings. And then reconstitute the historic advisory board. I just want to reiterate, I mean, there's a lot in this master plan, so we're going over kind of the basics of it. You get into a lot more detail when you start looking through page by page. Community facilities issues. Discuss the town's jurisdiction over the town government services, public and semi-public services, the libraries, schools, health facilities, emergency facilities, and solid waste management. Key community facility recommendations: prepare a long-term facilities plan to provide for space and functional needs of all town departments. And there's been talk since I've been working on the plan about consolidation of departments. So I need to take a look at that. Consider small technology investments across civic functions. Work with the library district to find suitable location for a St. James branch. Consider a town community or rec center or senior center should be in there. Continue to promote shared service opportunities for tax savings. And then we had a sustainability element that we had prepared, and the sustainability issues from the public, where 98%, very important, drinking water protection, air quality, 97%, surface water protection, 95%. So, you know, I think that's pretty much a given in any community that you go into. You You know, we all want safe air, water, and drinking water and surface water. So it's important to the residents. And the town completed various climate smart community actions through a grant application, but it has not submitted these actions for certification eligibility through the climate smart community. So one of the recommendations is going to move forward on that. Key sustainability recommendations in the plan. You know, promote TOD as a growth strategy, create green techniques, checklists for development applications. So what we're doing and what we're seeing more and more nowadays is having sustainable elements incorporated into your development applications and your land use ordinances. In many cases, if a new development comes in, if you hit a certain threshold for a number of units or size, you have to create a rain garden or create, you know, some other kind of sustainable element as part of your development application. You know, we always like to encourage the local farmers markets to get people out, you know, and since agriculture, people are in favor of promoting and maintaining agriculture, no reason they shouldn't be supporting local farmers markets. Encourage electronic charger installations and bike facilities in all new multifamily or major mixed use construction. We are required in at least in the towns that I work in New Jersey that, you know, they have a certain number of EV charger installations, and then we require bike facilities, interior and exterior, primarily when they're going to be in downtown areas, but also some multifamily buildings outside downtown areas. Create a benchmarking program and complete an energy audit. So you want to see where you currently exist, what your level of kind of sustainability actions are maintained or incorporated into the building facilities in Smithtown. Create a tree fund and undertake a tree inventory program. So there's, like I said, there's a lot, and I went through it in about an hour. So I thought that was pretty good. But the next steps are, you know, we're presenting the present and post the draft plan for public review and comments. So that'll be all posted for the public to look at. And then there's going to be a public outreach program to kind of reach out to the different community groups, see what they thought about the plan, how their comments or suggestions were integrated or not integrated. And, you know, we want to be there to kind of answer that question for people. And then the next step is the secret scoping and the public hearing on the draft plan and the DGIS in the spring. We'll revise as necessary. And then ultimately the public hearing on the plan and the final GEIS, at which point we'll adopt secret findings in the comprehensive plan. And then one of the big lists is then implementing the recommendations of the comprehensive plan. There's hundreds of recommendations in here, and you know it's there for the board and the land development boards to kind of use as a guideline moving forward. So that's it. Hopefully, you didn't speak too quickly for everybody here. Once again, it was a pleasure kind of working with everybody and putting this project together. And we look forward to seeing how the public reacts, how the board reacts, and how this plan is ultimately incorporated into the everyday life of the residents. And that's it.
Hey, Jeff, thank you very much for your agency's hard work, and we're looking forward to working together with you to bring this to fruition sometime in the spring of 2020.
Yeah, it's been great.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody is back.
Yes.
All right, that concludes our presentation. Next up will be, we have 2 site plans. So planning department, you're up.
I'm going to switch seats with Liam.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Supervisor, members of the town board. I'm Liam Trotta with the Planning Department. We have 2 site plans for the board to consider this afternoon, acting as the board's site plan review. I'm going to share the screen right now and we'll present these site plans. So the first application is for the Smithtown Chevrolet storage lot. The site is at the former Blackbeard's Restaurant in Middle Country Road and Hillside Avenue in St. James. The proposal is for a 29,088 square foot outdoor storage and display area for motor vehicles, not on the same lot as the principal use, which is the principal use is the Smithtown Chevrolet dealership on the south side of Middle Country Road. The applicant has agreed to 4 conditions of approval. The first, that they obtain necessary building permits. The second condition, that they install tree preservation fence around all trees to be preserved on site. The third condition is that they obtain a highway work permit from the New York State Department of Transportation for a new curb cut and improvements along Middle Country Road. And the fourth condition is that the property owner shall dedicate a portion of the property along Hillside Avenue to the town. The dedication shall widen the town right-of-way to accommodate an even 8 feet of land between the curb along Hillside Avenue and the east property line. So this is the proposed site plan. Again, it's just a storage lot for inventory for the Smithtown Chevrolet dealership. As you can see, there's only going to be one curb cut along Middle Country Road. There will be no access along Hillside Avenue. There's not going to be any removal of trees on the northern residential portion of the property. Again, this property is actually split zone. That northern section is zone residential, but there will be no disturbance in that area. And additional landscaping may be planted to better screen the storage area. Does the board have any questions on this application?
Liam, can
Yes.
you hear me? Councilman McCarthy?
Hi, Councilman.
When this was approved by the BZA to do it this way with a split, one on one side of the street and one on the other, I was totally against it because we're just making little lots in little corners and it's just not the way we want to do things. Is there any way to protect us that all of a sudden this doesn't become a storage lot that's not adjacent to a new car dealership in the future? Or we just get a bunch of little used car lots. This is the second or third one the BZA has approved, not adjacent to. And it's just a bad precedent.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's definitely something that the Planning Department and the Board of Zoning Appeals will take into consideration for future projects.
But how are we gonna, let's say Smithtown Chevrolet goes away. Now all of a sudden that just becomes a used car storage lot. How are we protecting ourselves that this doesn't become just a little used car storage lot, working out of a trailer or something in the future?
That is a good question. On the Board of Site Plan, we can enact further conditions that could state something along the lines of the uses. If the principal use goes away, then this is almost an accessory to the principal. So they're in fact tied together. So if the principal use goes away, the accessory use goes away also.
Mr. Supervisor,
Mhm.
I would recommend then that we table this for additional conditions to this site plan.
Okay, does the board have any objection to tabling it until, for further discussion?
I don't have any objection to tabling it and looking at it further.
Either do I.
Okay, so when we get, after the agenda, we get to the portion of the vote, we'll move to table it at that time, Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you. Just for additional conditions.
Okay.
That's a good point, Councilman.
All right, very good. Number 2.
Yep. So the next request is for a waiver of a condition of site plan approval. The applicant is CarMax Auto Superstores, which is proposed to be located at the former Smithtown Concrete Manufacturing Plant on Middle Country Road in St. James. The original site plan was approved on November 6, 2018, and the applicant is requesting that the board modify condition number 2 of their approval, which reads, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall submit and receive approval from the Board of Site Plan Review for a revised site plan with supporting documentation incorporating the methane-related conditions of approval as detailed by the Town Department of Environment and Waterways in their memorandum dated October 26, 2018. The applicant is requesting that the condition be modified so that the sequence of events in which to submit methane detection and extraction documentation to the town can be changed. The waiver modification as proposed would permit the issuance of demolition and compaction permits to remove existing structures and concrete slabs in order to better assess the site and landfill gas conditions. The prior wording of the condition mandates that a methane monitoring plan and extraction design be finalized and submitted prior to the start of any demolition. It is anticipated that demolition and compaction activity could affect the landfill gas levels and migration, causing the need to revise the pilot testing plan and gas collection system design. Allowing demolition of existing structures to occur first will allow engineers to better evaluate site conditions. Planning has met with DEW and the applicant's professionals numerous times regarding the anticipated operating procedures and have agreed upon a solution that is both beneficial to the town and applicant while maintaining proper health and safety protocol. The planning department recommends the waiver be approved per our memo sent to the town board dated December 10th, 2020. And it recommends that condition number 2 be modified accordingly to read as follows. The applicant shall obtain a demolition and compaction permit prior to any on-site disturbance. All activities during demolition and compaction shall be in accordance with the landfill gas monitoring procedures dated March 30th, 2020, prepared by VHB Engineering and the CarMax facility site-specific health and safety plan dated November 13th, 2020, prepared by VHB Engineering. Prior to the issuance of site work permit and/or building permit, the applicant shall submit and receive approval from the Board of Site Plan Review for a revised site plan with supporting documentation incorporating the methane-related conditions of approval as detailed by the Town Department of Environment and Waterways in their memo dated October 16th, 2018, as revised December 10th, 2020. So these are a few aerials of the former concrete plant. And again, it's just changing the sequence of events in which to submit the methane detection plan and extraction system design. Does the board have any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Trotter, has the applicant indicated what his schedule of timing is to go in and begin this work once they obtain the permits?
Yeah, they're are ready to move right away. They want to get the demo done as soon as possible, which is why they proposed this waiver. It's really to, this waiver is to, get them starting the demolition compaction as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, Mr. Trotter, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to move to the agenda at this time. So, Deputy Clerk, you could begin. I believe we have 2 public hearings today.
Okay, we have 2 public hearings. The first public hearing is for the town board to consider amending chapter 248 of the town code entitled subdivision of land regarding the term of the planning board members. And Janice Hanson, assistant town attorney from the town attorney's office, is here to describe them.
Okay, before we start, Counselor, anyone who wishes to be heard on these public hearings, please utilize your raise the hand button on your screens if you're listening in. If you have trouble with Zoom, you may call this office at 631-360-7600, and we will get you online so you may be heard. Thank you very much. Counselor?
Good afternoon, Supervisor, members of the town board. Once again, Janice Hanson, Assistant Town Attorney. The purpose of this hearing is to consider the adoption of Local Law 11-2020 to establish a 2-year term for members of the town's planning board. Unless there are any questions, that's all that there is on that one.
Okay, Nicole, do we have anyone who wishes to be heard on this public hearing?
No, Supervisor, I do not.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adopt this hearing at this time.
Oh, we
I'll
have to
second that
close it
motion.
first. We have to close the public hearing first.
Okay, so call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, Supervisor Wareham,
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack,
Yes,
Councilwoman Inzarella,
Yes,
Councilman Lohman.
Yes.
Okay, again, motion to adopt this resolution, public hearing number 1.
Second that.
Supervisor Wareham,
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack,
yes,
Councilwoman Inzarella,
yes,
Councilman Loman.
Yes.
Okay, the second public hearing is for the town board to consider a proposed amendment to chapter 322 of the town code entitled zoning as it relates to the term for the Board of Zoning Appeal members. Janice?
Thank you. Yes, once again, this is to consider the adoption of a local law. This is local law 12-2020. This would establish a 2-year term for the members of the town's Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Nicole. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard on public hearing number 2?
No, Supervisor.
Okay, then I'll move to close the hearing.
Second.
Supervisor Wareham,
Yes,
Councilman McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack,
yes,
Councilwoman Inzarella,
yes,
Councilman Loman.
Yes.
also a motion to adopt the hearing at this time.
Second that.
Okay, Supervisor Wareham,
Yes,
Councilman McCarthy,
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack,
yes,
Councilwoman Inzarella,
yes,
Councilman Loman.
Yes.
okay, thank you. Deputy Clerk, we can continue.
Okay, we have consent agendas number 1 to 30 and consent resolutions number 1 to 5.
Is there anyone on town council that wishes to remove any items from the consent agenda?
no,
No.
No.
Okay, Mr. Clerk?
Councilman Loman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Inzarella,
yes,
Councilwoman Noack,
yes,
Councilman McCarthy,
Yes.
Supervisor Wareham.
Yes,
The town board to authorize the town clerk to advertise for the following bids. Bid 20075, bulk delivery of Portland cement powder. Bid 20076, paint and stain. Bid 20081, the annual contract for office cleaning services, all 3 due January 7th, 2021. And bid 20074, structural wall and slab modifications and roof replacement at the Highway Yard Red Barn, due January 14th, 2021.
Councilman Loman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Inzarella,
yes,
Councilwoman Noack,
yes,
Councilman McCarthy,
Yes.
Supervisor Wareham.
yes,
Award request for proposal number 2018 for development and implementation of municipal pavement management service system to IMS Infrastructure Management Services, as per proposals dated March 26th, and authorize the supervisor to sign any agreements on a form approved by the town attorney.
Councilman Loman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Inzarella,
yes,
Councilwoman Noack,
yes,
Councilman McCarthy,
Yes.
Supervisor Wareham.
yes,
The town board to approve the ratification of the execution of a hold harmless agreement with Maura Rudolph by the supervisor regarding 369 Lake Avenue, an extension of agreement with RNC Environmental Geology PC for groundwater sampling and laboratory analysis at the municipal service facility for phase 1, cells 1 to 5, and phase 2, cells 6 through December 31st, 2021. Extension of bid 18083 for the purchase of surplus materials with Gershow Recycling. The emergency procurement for 120-foot extension of the stone revetment at the Kings Park Bluff. Authorize the issuance of a purchase order to All Island Excavating Corp. In the amount of $95,000. Windstream Paytech phone system monthly payment extension. A sole source purchase of replacement in-feed belt for Horizon grinder from Rotochopper Incorporated. The Workmen's Compensation Insurance Agreement with New York State Municipal Workers' Compensation Alliance. Acquisition of ClearGov budgeting software. A change to order number 2 for PIN 1901, the contract for office cleaning services with Commercial Cleaning Long Island for additional cleaning services.
Councilman Loman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Inzarella,
yes,
Councilwoman Noack,
yes,
Councilman McCarthy,
Yes.
Supervisor Wareham.
yes,
The town board to issue a CEQA positive declaration in the matter of the town board's own motion to adopt the town of Smithtown 2020 comprehensive plan for the reasons stated in a memo dated December 7th, 2020.
Councilman Lumen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Inzarella,
Yes.
Councilman Noack,
yes,
Councilman McCarthy,
yes,
Supervisor Warehan.
Yes.
The town board to issue a written consistency determination pursuant to chapter 151 of the town code that application 2020-08 Parsonage Roads property is consistent with the local water revitalization plan, subject to conditions as stated in the December 8th memorandum from the town planning director.
Councilman Loman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Inzarella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack,
yes,
Councilman McCarthy,
yes,
Supervisor Warehan.
Yes.
Authorize the acceptance of a donation from Stop and Shop to the animal shelter in the amount of $101 and a donation from Cheryl Milliken in the amount of $200 to the senior center.
Councilman Loman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Inzarella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack,
yes,
Councilman McCarthy,
yes,
Supervisor Warehan.
Yes.
Authorize the supervisor to execute the following on a form approved by the town attorney. The renewal rates for HIP Prime HMO coverage and HIP VIP Medicaid coverage for the period beginning January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021. An agreement with Rapid Armor Corporation to provide pickup and delivery to official depositories for the tax receiver's office. Agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management for the sale of town vehicles and authorize the supervisor to execute any documents related to the sale. Enterprise agreement with Dell Technologies to purchase licenses for Microsoft Teams. Lease 8 copiers for various town departments through Kaisera Document Solutions. Adoption of the Suffolk County Multi-Jurisdiction Multi-Hazard Mitigation Plan. Agreement with Oil Island Excavating Corp. For emergency repairs at the King Clark Bluff. An agreement with Property Registration Champions doing business as Pro Champs to provide services authorized pursuant to Chapter 322-4 of the Town Code.
Councilman Loman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Inzarella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack,
yes,
Councilman McCarthy,
yes,
Supervisor Warehan.
Yes.
Approve the settlement of Diana Vasallo for $251.10. Georgianne Lomonica for $900. Gina Dosa, $2,099.72. Kerry Lynch, $450. And George and Mary Bonta for $200.
Councilman Loman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Inzarella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack,
yes,
Councilman McCarthy,
yes,
Supervisor Warehan.
Yes.
And personnel items number 1 to 8 that are described in full on the agenda.
Councilman Loman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Inzarella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack,
yes,
Councilman McCarthy,
yes,
Supervisor Warehan.
Yes.
And we
We
have
have one read-on resolution.
Okay, the read-on is for the approval of the private plower rates for hired equipment for snow removal and other highway department work effective December 15th, 2020 through December 31st, 2021.
Councilman Loman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Inzarella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack,
yes,
Councilman McCarthy,
yes,
Supervisor Warehan.
Yes. That concludes resolutions on the agenda. Sitting is the Board of Site Plan Review.
Okay, we have is the minutes approval for the site plan review of November 3rd, and the two previously described resolutions. The first, CarMax Auto Superstores, and the second to conditionally approve the site plan for Smithtown Chevrolet storage lot.
All right, so
Okay,
we'll
we
approve
will-
the first one, and then we'll,
Call the roll on the first one, Mr. Clerk, and we'll do the second one separately.
got it. Okay, Councilman Loman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Inzarella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack,
yes,
Councilman McCarthy,
yes,
Supervisor Warehan.
Yes, that's on number 1. Number 2, Mr. McCarthy.
I'd like to move the table, number 2,
Second.
Councilman McCarthy,
yes,
Supervisor Wareham,
Yes.
Councilman Noack,
yes,
Councilwoman Inzarella,
Yes.
Councilman Loman.
Yes.
Okay, number 2 has been tabled.
Right.
That concludes site plan review. Nicole, do we have anyone who wishes to be heard on a town matter?
No, no one has their hand up, Supervisor.
Okay, that being said, and I will move to close the meeting.
Second,
Supervisor Wareheim,
Yes,
Councilman McCarthy,
yes.
Councilwoman Noah,
Yes.
Councilwoman Inzarella,
Yes.
Councilman Loman.
Yes.
okay, that concludes the board meeting. Thank you, everyone. We'll talk soon. Everybody stay safe.